So I'm going to go ahead and jump out here right now and do a quick demo. And I'm going to start really from the ground up here. We're going to go into Crystal Reports first, and I'm going to write a quick sales report. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, just enough to get something out there to give you guys a feel for what we're doing here. So we're going to go and we're just going to add the order header history, which is where your invoices go once you post them. So we'll put order number on there, customer number, customer name, invoice number, and invoice date. Now I'm also going to go ahead and add a parameter to this. Parameter is a prompt that the user gets when they run the report. So we're going to go ahead and do it where we can filter by customer number. So when the user runs a report, they're going to be prompted for which customer they want to run this sales history report for. So I'm going to go into the Select Expert real quick, and we're going to go ahead and do a filter on customer number equal to however they answered the parameter. So I'm going to go ahead and save this thing. So once you have a report out there, now's where we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what Koperniko does. So this is the Koperniko menu here. We built it using a kind of an Outlook look and feel here. We've got menu options for controlling security, things like that, adding reports. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly upload a report so that we can see one run. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of detail about how we control all this. Let's call it sales. And we're going to add something called a report tag. The report tag, again, is what allows us to run this report outside of the Koperniko menu if we decide we want to go that way. So let's call it sales here. Now, once we upload the report, now we're going to kind of configure this thing for security and control who runs it, how, against what databases. So the first thing we do is, I mentioned that we can categorize the reports. So I go to categories here, and we see that we have 4 different categories of reports that we've defined. Now, these are completely configurable by you. I've just got 4 here, in my demo system: inventory, sales, purchasing, and production. So you can actually have a report visible in multiple categories. We maybe want it to show up under sales, and you could actually have it show up under any number of categories just by simply dragging and dropping them over to the left-hand side of the screen here. Then we're going to go to roles. This is going to allow us to define which roles can actually run this report. So I have 3 roles defined in my system. I have admins, users, and purchasing role. I'm going to go ahead and just say that only admins can run this, but you can have as many roles allowed to run this report as you want. And again, roles will determine, when you log in, you have a role or you have multiple roles. That's going to determine which reports you see on your menu. Then we go to connection unit. A connection unit, think of it simply as a database. So if you are a multi-company inside of Macola, each one of those Macola companies you would define in Koperniko as a connection unit. And so you can then go in here when you upload the report and say which of your Macola companies you want to be able to run this report against. So again, the idea is that unlike traditional deployment methods that you might have where if if you have multiple companies, maybe you have to have the same report out there multiple times. In this way, you can actually write the report once and run it against all the different companies that you might have out there. And if you notice up here under roles, you can actually control. What we're doing here is we're controlling by role which companies that you have access to. So if you're occupying the role of salesperson company 1, maybe in that role you can only run it against company 1. If you're salesperson company 2 role, then you would only be able to run it against company 2. So at the role and database level, we can control access to this report. And here's something that was one of the big features that I see about this software as well, and that is the parameters. Remember that when I wrote that report, I added a parameter for customer number. So traditionally, you would write the report. When a user runs it, they get prompted. And, you know, in Crystal, you can define a drop-down list of acceptable values, things like that, to allow them to select one. A lot of times you also maybe could do a lookup. In Crystal 11.5. They actually added the ability to do a lookup, but it's very rudimentary. With our software, when you get prompted for the parameter, you can actually define a lookup here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit on this customer prompt. And we can do a couple of different things here. Number one is we define what table we want to look up into. So I'm going to just go ahead and say that we want to look into the customer file when we're doing a lookup to prompt them for the customer. Next thing we got to do is we've got to define the field that gets returned from the lookup. So we're going to return the customer number from the lookup. Then over here, it's saying what fields do you want to display in the lookup. So when they do a search, what do we want to be able to search by? I'm going to go ahead and say we want to be able to search by customer number and customer name. So we're going to save that. So now we've uploaded a new report into Koperniko, which means, you know, users now that have access to it, when they log into Koperniko Reports, they're going to see that report in their menu. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over here to Run Reports. So now it's as if I'm just a regular user, maybe not an administrator, you know, uploading reports, things like that. I'm just going to come in here and run some reports. So if we look under Sales Reports here as my category, I now see the report that I just uploaded called Sales. So I want to run that. I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. And the first screen we get here requires us to do a couple of things. Number one is selecting the database. So remember, if you're in a multi-company environment, we saw how we can control access to, at the report level, the different companies inside of Macola. So this report we only said can run against a connection unit called Macola ES. But if we have multiple ones, they would all be available here in the dropdown. And then remember the customer parameter. So if you think about how you run reports now, you know, if you get a parameter, it's very limited in how you can answer that as far as being able to look it up or pick it from a drop-down. But when we edited our parameter, when we uploaded the report, now we have this lookup box here. So when I click on search, remember I said that I want to be able to search by customer number or customer name. Both of those fields now are available here in my lookup. And so you can search in either one of these columns. If I click on the filter button here, we can do the filter on contains, does not contain, starts with, ends with, equal to, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of different ways to search based off of a value that I put in. So I'm going to do my filter. I'm going to pick my customer there, and you can see that it returned the customer number to the field because that's the field I chose to return to the parameter prompt. And I'm going to go ahead and just click Run Report here. You can see here now the report, this comes right up in the window here, and this is basically a Crystal viewer. Just like inside of Macola, you know, there's the Crystal reports on the menu, and when you run them, they come up in a window. This is the same thing. This is a web-based version of the Crystal viewer, the same kind of thing that you have built into Macola. So we have all the standard features here, page controls. If you have grouping, you can hide or unhide the group tree. You can print it. We can export it. So I'm going to go ahead and export this thing. Maybe I want to take this report out to a PDF file. So when I click export, it asks me what format that I want to export to. I'll say Adobe. You can see we support rich text, Excel, Word, Adobe, and Crystal. We can actually then selectively choose a page range if we want. I'm going to go ahead and say all and export it. So now this thing is a Adobe PDF file. So from here I can do whatever. I can save it, I can print it, I could email it, whatever I want to do with it. We also have the search function, just like you have inside your Crystal Viewer and Macola, so you can find specific pieces of text that you might be looking for, zooming capabilities, things like that. So, I wanted to show you, I know it's a very simple report, it's not really pretty, but I wanted to show you, just how quickly, once you have a report that you've written, that you can put it out there on the menu and get it to all your users.